In the kingdom of Fauna, every royal gets a super special gift from the goddess the moment they turn 13. But one prince? Yeah, his luck was basically zero. Right before the big event in the Farnia Castle courtyard, he didn't get a single gift. And there he is, Theodore Foreign, the third Prince of Air. He was busy going all out in a practice fight with his maid, and we're just gonna call him Theo to keep things simple. Every hit from his maid was getting way more powerful, and he was totally being forced back. His personal maid was Leela, but she also went by the name Stain. Theo finally hit the floor totally exhausted, so Layla called it a day since he needed his energy for the gift ceremony happening that evening. Theo's face totally lit up as he started hyping Layla up, clearly impressed by her insane skills. She was a total beast with a sword, an amazing cook, an S-rank adventurer, and super polite. Basically, she was the perfect girl in every way. Layla thanks Theo for the kind words and reaches out to help him up. But right before he can grab her hand, a giant wall of water comes crashing right toward him. Layla yanked Theo back just in time, barely saving him from getting totally soaked. The guy behind this whole crazy scene was Niels Florian, the second Prince of Fornia, and he's finally here to flex his magic and show off little Theo. Niels just smirked, reminding his little brother that every royal gets a massive power-up at 13, so why was Theo even wasting his time training? The Odin were totally lost after Niels' trash talk, but he made his point crystal clear by summoning a massive fireball. He's totally flexing his magic and acting super cocky about it. He mocked Theo's sword training, saying his crazy new powers made practicing a total waste of time. They even said that the gift showed everyone exactly what kind of person that royal really was. Everyone was hyped to see the total garbage Theo was about to hand over. After that massive flex, Neil zoomed away, totally hyped for the big ceremony. Theo was getting so fed up with his brother's trash talk that he squeezed his fists tight. Layla quickly pulled Theo into a big hug to comfort him, telling him that if Neil was right about gifts matching your personality, Theo was definitely about to get one seriously insane gift. Her pep talk totally hyped him up, and now he was actually feeling ready for the ceremony. Later that night, the whole royal family gathered together in the main court. Theo got totally roasted by everyone just because he didn't get a single blessing from the gods. His family was super mad and confused, straight up asking if he was even a real royal because nothing like this had ever happened. Theo looked totally freaked out, and you could see the pure panic written all over his face. Things got way worse when Neil just started laughing in their faces. He's laughing so hard that tears are actually starting to well up. Goss, the fourth king of Fornia, shut everyone up instantly and started talking to them with a super serious vibe. He wondered if the guy was actually trying to humiliate him on purpose. Goss yelled that a son rejected by the goddess had no business in the castle, making it clear that Theo was officially banned. Niels wasted no time telling his dad to finally go through with the plan they talked about. King Gauss finally made up his mind, all for crowning Theo as the Lord of the Land of Death. Everyone at the ceremony was totally blown away, and the whole crowd started whispering like crazy. Theo tried to argue against his dad's rules, but the king just shut him down without a second thought. The Land of Death was a total toxic wasteland where nothing could grow, and scary monsters were always on the hunt. This place was way too dangerous for any human, and Theo had no clue why his dad would even send him there. Before he could even talk back, the king shut him down and called him a total failure. Those savage words really cut Theo deep. His dad made it clear that crossing the king wasn't an option, so Theo had to pack his bags and head straight for the Land of Death. This decision basically meant he was being kicked out of the kingdom for good. Niels catches Jeer laughing right in Theo's face, bragging about how he's going to be the next king while Theo is left to struggle for survival in a total wasteland. Feeling totally crushed and out of options, the Ohad finally gave up and accepted his dark future. The next morning, his carriage finally hit the road. As he started pulling away, he gave his family and friends one last wave goodbye. But his arrogant dad and selfish brother were nowhere to be found. He sat back in the carriage and suddenly realized Layla was totally gone. He was just wishing he could have said goodbye when suddenly her voice rang out, telling him she was right there. Theoden was totally zoned out, but he still managed to react before anyone else. He suddenly spots Layla sitting right across from him and asks what she's even doing there. Layla promised she'd stay right by his side, but he warned her that he was heading straight into a total death trap and didn't want her getting killed. Layla was getting a little annoyed, so she reminded him that she's his personal maid, and she's got a job to do. They swore they'd follow him even if it meant going straight to the bottom of hell. Theo asked if she was 100% sure, and she just gave him a firm nod with zero hesitation. He thanked her for coming along, and Layla told him she was just hyped to finally get some alone time with him. They just kept on joking around as the carriage rolled down the path. It's going to take a few days and multiple carriage swaps to reach the Land of Death, and Theophelp is seriously stressed about the whole trip. Honestly, just having Layla there by his side made him feel a whole lot better. But one major question was still bugging him. Wait, why didn't he get his special gift from the goddess yet? He wondered if it was all because he didn't actually belong in this world. He remembers his past life as just a regular guy working a boring office job. He was trapped in a boring cycle just like everyone else, grinding through massive shifts that didn't end until way past midnight. The drama even followed him home, making every single day feel like it was stuck on repeat. He really missed playing those city-building games from his school days. But now work takes up all his time, and he's realizing that being an adult is actually the worst. One day he pushed himself way too far and his body just totally gave out. He woke up in a totally strange place where a smiling goddess was waiting to welcome him to the world of the gods. The goddess Vesta introduces herself and quietly drops the massive news that Theo is actually dead. Theo was totally stunned and just couldn't believe what he was hearing. The goddess said she was sorry he died, but then she got right down to business. She straight up asked him if he wanted to be reborn in a whole different world. She told him to stop asking questions because gods always have their own secret reasons, and then she made the deal even better to hook him. They promised him a totally unique power if he chose to be reincarnated. This power reminded him of his favorite game where building stuff was a total breeze, which was perfect since he was stuck in a strange new world. He was really hoping to score a crafting ability. He talked about a game he obsessed over in school, and asked for crafting powers just like the ones from it. Vesta granted his wish right then and there. Looking back, Theo started thinking that maybe he didn't get a gift at the ceremony because he already had this power all along. Since he was reborn as a prince and hadn't built a single thing, he totally forgot he even had that skill. Leyland gives Awake a quick nudge to let everyone know they've finally arrived. He woke up and totally freaked out when he realized he was using her lap as a pillow. But Layla just told him to chill since he's the one who crashed there. She wanted to keep staring at his sleeping face, but she pointed out that the driver was totally losing his patience. The driver was getting super annoyed because he couldn't just wait around all day while they chilled in his carriage. They scrambled out fast and came face to face with a total wasteland of death. Theo wasn't expecting to see a single soul, but he couldn't get over how totally empty and dead the place looked. He was stressing about sleeping out in the freezing cold, but Layla told him not to sweat it. She joked about using her own body heat to keep him warm, but Theo knew that wouldn't stand a chance in this freezing place and just brushed her off. Layla's feelings were hurt, and Theo got totally spooked when he realized she wasn't kidding around. She turned away, knowing that even if she missed her shot this time, she'd have plenty of other chances to win him over. The O decided their very first move was to get a roof over their heads and build a shelter. He remembered his crafting skill and flashed a huge grin, totally hyped to finally put it to work. He tells Layla to start chopping down the trees nearby. She moved in a total flash, slicing right through them with her sword, leaving behind nothing but massive piles of logs. Theo was blown away by her strength, but it totally makes sense since she used to be an adventurer. Leela asked what he was doing with the logs, and Theo told her he was building a house. They scrambled to get all the logs together. Theo stepped right up to the pile to trigger his ability. He was super out of practice and had never built anything as massive as a house, so he had no clue how to pull it off. He locked in, picturing every beam and wall to make sure the whole place was rock solid. Suddenly the logs just started moving all on their own, and just like that, a whole house was standing right in front of them. Lila was totally blown away and started questioning where all that insane power even came from. He didn't get a gift at the ceremony because he actually had the ox-plane ability from the very start. Layla was so proud of her master that she just pulled him into a massive hug. He accidentally face-planted right into her chest, and as he struggled to breathe and mumble, she apologized and said she just got way too hyped up. They wasted no time and headed right inside. Layla and Wonder were totally blown away by the perfect wood and stone design inside the house. Theo walks into the room and sees the bed as just a bare frame, realizing right then that he's gonna need to find some materials if he wants to build anything. Layla stepped up and offered her own clothes to use instead. Then he fires up his auto-crafting power. Theo whipped up a super comfy cot in a total flash. But that fix just ended up causing a whole new problem. Lyle stood there dripping wet in nothing but a thin nightgown. She lunged straight for Theo while he scrambled to stay out of her reach. But she wouldn't budge, sticking right by his side to make sure he stayed safe. He even slams him right against the wall. Finally, Aure just gave in. They both ended up squeezing onto the same cot. He scrambled to his feet, totally freaked out by how close she was, even though he tried his absolute best to stay out of it. Theo got cornered by Layla and had absolutely no way out. Their first day in this creepy land of death finally came to an end. Theo knew that without Layla and his crafting powers, he'd be dead meat by now. Having her right there by his side made him feel totally safe. Out of nowhere that night, the entire house started shaking like crazy. Theo stepped outside to see what was up, and suddenly, a massive minotaur was charging straight for him. He's got that club held high, ready to smash everything in sight. Right as the club swung, He yanked them out of the way and it slammed into the ground. She whipped out her sword, totally ready to take that beast down. She was totally fuming that this thing just ruined her perfect honeymoon with Prince Theo. Layla made up her mind and got ready to take that monster head on. Theo was worried for a second, but then he remembered she's a total beast who's taken down monsters like this before. He was honestly sick of being so weak and hated that he always had to lean on her whenever things got dangerous. The determinative act kicks in, forcing the Otole Layla to finally back off. He fired up his auto-crafting ability. The Minotaur charges straight through the house, smashing the whole place into splinters. Just picture your weapon in your head. He whipped up a massive wooden drop axe in just a few seconds. He catches the monster totally off guard. Theo slammed his massive axe down like a total shooting star. It completely crushed the Minotaur into the ground, taking him out for good. Theo was totally hyped because everything was going way better than he even imagined. He thought back to being kicked out of the capital and how lost he used to be. But now he finally knows exactly where he's headed. Layla rushes over and pulls him into a super tight hug. Everyone was hyping him up for his insane skills. Right then, Theo knew he'd finally found his path, and he was totally hyped for what was coming next. Out in this empty wasteland, his power to craft anything made him feel like he was finally living inside his favorite childhood video game. He looked right at Layla and told her he finally found what he was meant to do. She got super curious and asked him what he actually meant. Theo confidently explained exactly how he was going to use his powers. To bring this dead wasteland back to life, and totally flip this land of death on its head. We're way out on the northern border of the Fornia Kingdom. Theo woke up for his very first morning in the land of death. And they only made it this far because of the home they built. The sun was finally up, and the boss had to start plotting his next big move. He walks into the kitchen and finds Layla has whipped up a massive breakfast feast. And they're really pushing it for a place that's basically a total wasteland. Theo takes his first bite and his taste buds go absolutely crazy. Layla apologized for the simple meal, explaining she just used whatever supplies she could find lying around the castle. She even offered him her own food if he was still hungry. Theo realized their food was running out fast, so he made finding more his top priority. Layla suggested starting a farm, and Theo was totally down because he knew having tons of food would finally bring new people to this empty wasteland. Once they finished eating, they headed outside to get right to work. Theos was super hyped, but his mood totally tanked the second he saw what was actually happening. This place was straight up called the Land of Death. The dirt was totally trash and you couldn't grow a single thing in it. Layla dropped a rumor that some old disaster poisoned the ground with toxic air, and the kingdom's big plan to fix it was a total failure. Theo wasn't backing down and immediately fired up his autocraft skill. He crafts a stone hoe out of a stick and a rock to start breaking up the dirt. They all teamed up to get the field ready. They worked the soil until it was soft and then tossed in some fertilizer. They finally finished the job, and now they just had to cross their fingers that food would actually grow. Orested is totally wiped out, just face-planting right onto the dining table. He was totally blown away by how brutal farming actually turned out to be. He was honestly thinking about just finding a spot to take a leak. Layla warned them the water was poisoned by the toxic air, so they had to make every single drop count. As if monsters and hunger weren't bad enough, the O are now desperately hunting for clean water. He looked around and realized the Land of Death totally lived up to its name. That night, Theo and Layla ended up sharing the same cot. Like always, he jumped right up the second she tried to get close to him. But he noticed she was already out cold, even though they literally just laid down. He realized she totally earned a break since she'd been up since dawn cooking and working way harder on the farm than he ever did. Feeling like you're just not on Layla's level? He knew he had to seriously step up his game. He was totally determined to outwork everyone, so he finally headed off to get some rest. Right as he was getting busted, Theo suddenly warped back to the exact same place he saw after his first death. Tim was freaking out thinking he'd died again, but God quickly calmed him down and explained she only summoned his mind. She bowed her head and apologized for all the crazy chaos she caused. That's why he got kicked out to the middle of nowhere, all because she couldn't give him a gift when he turned 13. She explained that since she already has autocraft, she can't hand out any other skills. She warned that stacking too many powers would make your heart pop and your body literally explode. She just kept saying sorry over and over again, but Theo told her she seriously needed to chill out. He thanked him for that totally epic gift. God was so moved by how kind he was that he was literally about to burst into tears, and she tries to pull him into a massive hug. Theo wasn't about to get smothered by the goddess, so he quickly threw up his guard to stay safe. The god stops dead in his tracks because he just remembered something major. She pulls out a metal bar and explains it's actually god metal packed with insane divine energy. She knew this stuff was totally banned in the human world, but she decided to give it to him anyway. Curious asked her if she was totally sure he could handle keeping something that valuable. The goddess shushed him, telling him to stay quiet because he was her favorite, and this special gift was meant only for him. She even threw in a little bonus by giving him a quick kiss on the cheek. They're finally heading out and leaving Theo fluster behind. Just before she took off, she called the gift a little blessing and told him he'd better use it wisely. She wished him luck and promised she'd always have his back. That's exactly what you'd expect from the #1 groomer, Theo Wokencott. He was seriously wondering if this was all just a dream. Keisha felt so incredibly real that there was just no way it was fake. Out of nowhere, he spots something moving right under his covers. He pulls the sheets back from his legs. He spotted Layla, the second groomer, and it looked like she was snooping around for something. He immediately jumped in and asked her what she was even doing. She said she felt something hard and knew she had to check it out. The ogre was super confused at first, but then he got totally embarrassed when he realized he was actually catching feelings. He told them his body was just having a totally normal reaction. Turns out that hard object was actually the god nettle bar. Layla asked what it was, and Theoclarifite told her it was a gift straight from the goddess. But then, Layla took them outside and dropped some seriously bad news. The OAS were totally shocked to see the land they worked so hard on turn back into a dead wasteland. He finally realized that trying to grow anything in this dead wasteland was a total lost cause. Let's see if he can get that same result one more time. He tells them to switch up the fertilizer and keep those experiments going. Theo started whining that it was all for nothing, but then he remembered his promise to grind harder and got totally fired up again. He grabbed the hoe and told Layla to go chill out for a bit. She spent all day yesterday grinding, so now it was finally his turn to step up. He told her she should start training with a sword. Talking forever wasn't doing anything, so they focused on finding the perfect fertilizer, even though he admitted he knew almost nothing about the soil. A system window pops up and shows the soil is E rank, which is basically garbage, so nothing's gonna grow here unless it gets some divine purification first. While the O stares at the window, Layla looks like she can't even see it's there. He had no clue why this soil info was suddenly popping up. He remembered the goddess's mark and finally realized it was actually her divine blessing. He knew the soil had to be perfectly clean for the crops to grow, so he jumped right back into the grind. He had no idea how to purify it, so he just whipped out that insane divine rank god metal bar. This stuff was forged by the gods themselves to give weapons crazy divine powers. Theo cooked up a plan and ripped the wooden handle right off his hoe. Now just fuse it together with the god metal. And he forged a straight-up god-tier hoe. The name sounded totally weird, but the second he used it on the ground, it let out a massive, blinding glow. For a second, it looked like everything was totally normal. He checked his status window and saw the dirt had turned into divine soil, meaning the goddess's blessing would let anyone grow some seriously insane crops. The O-grind are going totally wild, busting out a massive dance to celebrate. He screamed to Layla that the divine hoe could actually purify the ground, so they could finally get to work and start planting their crops. Layla was so hyped for Huckin's win that she literally leaped right at him, but she was totally shocked when that elite fighter took her down without even breaking a sweat. Layla is usually super bold, but his insane speed actually had her feeling pretty flustered. Theo gave Layla and the goddess all the credit for finally making him useful. He was literally crying happy tears as he thanked her. Layla was totally overwhelmed and she finally hit her breaking point, and her mind was totally blown. They finally pulled it off and turned that dry dirt into a total goldmine for growing food. Later on, Vesta was just chilling in the tub while spying on Theo through her crystal ball. Suddenly, another goddess named Athena shows up and grills Vesta about her weird obsession with Theo. Vesta was hyped, calling Theo a total genius for turning that legendary god metal into a hoe to fix the poisoned land. Athena just shrugged and flexed that her hero was way stronger than Theo. Vesta tease Athena always picks cute girls to be her heroes, which is making everyone think she's a total creep. Athena snapped back that she couldn't help it if her heroes were adorable, and she definitely didn't want to be labeled a showdown like Vesta. While they were bickering, Athena finally admitted Theo was the real deal and saw a bit of her cute hero in him. The connection died, but she stayed totally glued to her crystal ball. Meanwhile, Theo stayed up all night looking through files about the kingdom's big plan to take their land back. The files showed that the poison air only hits the surface, so anyone hiding deep underground is actually safe. This meant the water under the ground was actually safe to drink. Theo finished building a well deep underground and tested it out to make sure it actually worked. The system pinged and confirmed that this water was actually top-tier C rank. They clinked their glasses together like they were sipping fancy wine, then just chugged the water. Now that they had the water, they just had to finish digging the dirt and planting seeds to get their food growing. Digging up all that land was a total nightmare. Theocalab was totally wiped out in the middle of his work, so Layla stepped in with some water to help him out. She told him to take a breather while she headed out to solo the entire horde herself. Theo brought up the time she totally collapsed from overworking, because he knew that crazy explosion wasn't just from her being tired. He wasn't taking no for an answer and made her get some sleep. He warned her that overworking is super dangerous, secretly remembering how it literally killed him in his past life. And Layla could tell he was being dead serious. Theo still had no clue how he was going to break the news to the whole land. And he literally just wished for a tractor. But he didn't have the supplies to actually build one. Layla overheard everything and suggested just calling for backup or using cattle, since she had zero clue how tractors even worked. Her plan was actually genius because nobody would ever move to a wasteland like that, and there's no way they could bring their cows along. Layla suggests using the oasis autocraft to farm humans like cattle, which is basically human transmutation straight out of Full Metal Alchemist. Theo was totally shaking and admitted he was way too scared to even try. And even though Layla claimed she was just joking, he could tell she was dead serious. Theo thought about it for a second and then, boom, he finally figured it out. He was super thankful for that fire Layla had in her. He saw they were missing some gear, so he just decided to build it himself. Layla asked if he was messing with human transmutation, but he promised her that wasn't the plan at all. He made it clear that he was going to create something that would follow every single order. A golem! He realized they just needed some dirt, rocks, and a magic stone to make it happen. This stuff was packed with monster power and used to make weapons, magic gear, or even raw energy. Layla felt super down because she couldn't give them what they wanted, so she started undressing to try and make up for it. Theo quickly reminded her they still had that magic stone from the monster they just took down. Once they finished grabbing all the stones and materials, Theo fires up his auto-crafting power to build a golem on the spot. The rocks slam together and transform into a massive stone giant. Layla was totally blown away by what Theo created, and she couldn't help but feel super proud of him. Theo gave the signal and it instantly charged forward. It suddenly lunged forward, catching Theo completely off guard. But the golem didn't attack. It just scooped him up onto its shoulder like he was its own kid. Layla jumped in to protect Theo, but he told her the gong wasn't actually trying to fight. Layla was getting super salty seeing the goblins shower Theo with all that love. Some people swore it had real feelings, even though others said it was totally heartless. She figured his special way of crafting was so unique that it actually gave the thing real feelings. The OS got right to work and ordered the golem to start tilling the ground. He grabbed a hoe and started working at a speed that was honestly insane. They finished prepping the field in no time, and by the afternoon, they had every single seed planted and watered. The golem took a breather while Theo and Layla finally sat down to eat. The O was feeling super chill and totally hyped for everything coming up in the next few months. The next morning, they were totally blown away to see that every single crop had finished growing overnight. Even the out-of-season veggies are growing like crazy. The O hadn't totally expected to take everyone out this fast. The food shortage was finally over and everyone could eat again. This blessed soil is seriously insane, making all the crops grow to full size in just one night. He was super curious to find out what they actually tasted like. Layla checked for any nasty side effects, and her system screen confirmed these crops were top tier and totally safe to eat. They all merged together into one giant opening, and just like that, the flavor literally exploded in his mouth. It was easily the juiciest, most delicious thing he'd ever tasted. He was seriously questioning if that tomato was even a vegetable. He tossed one over to Layla, hyping up how amazing it tasted, and after she finally gave it a try, she was totally blown away by the flavor. Thale figured they'd taste way better cooked, so they started whipping up a meal. Inside, Layla was cooking so fast it was actually insane. He's whipping up all kinds of delicious food in no time. That first bite was straight up paradise. The taste was so insane and fresh that they couldn't even speak for minutes, just totally lost in how good it was. With top-tier ingredients and insane skills, these dishes were straight up legendary. Now that the food situation was finally fixed, Theo headed outside to tackle his next big mission. He calls out to his golem Gorm to see if he's finished gathering all the materials. Gorm quickly pointed over to a big pile of rocks and logs he'd already gathered up. Layla was dying to know, so she asked the Gaul for his name. Theo said he tried calling it Gorm, and the thing actually seemed to really like it. Layla checked out the materials and asked him what he was planning to build. As she put the pieces together, she started to wonder if he was building a whole separate house just to get away from her. Theo was already one step ahead, but now that they finally had water, the whole game changed. He knew they were totally wiped, so he made finding a place to crash his top priority. He puts his auto-crafting skill to work. He built an outdoor hot spring that looks just like a classic Japanese inn. They finally got the bubbly soap and a sponge made from all sorts of materials, making their long-time dream a reality. He split the area into guys and girls sections and rushed to his side, telling Layla to meet him after their baths, but she stayed totally silent as they headed off to get cleaned up. Theo was going to scrub down before the soak, but when Layla offered to wash him, he actually said yes, and they both stopped right there. They're staring each other down when suddenly, Theos just starts freaking out. Lyle noticed they were in the guys section and started arguing that separating the baths by gender was totally pointless anyway. She was super bold about it, making sure he knew she was his maid, and that it was her job to take care of everything for him. She teased him about not being able to wash right and leaned in way too close, making Theo totally freak out and tell her to get lost. But Layla straight up refused to follow his orders, even though she was his servant. He questioned their weird master-servant vibe, so Lyle just asked if it was wrong for them to touch each other a little bit. Theo kept arguing that she had totally crossed the line. In the end, Layla came out on top and gave him a serious scrub down. They finally got to kick back in the hot springs as the night went totally quiet. Layla mentions how beautiful the stars look, and that actually makes Theo crack a smile. He realized right then that he'd never seen a view this insane in his past life or even the capital. He was just stoked to have anything at all in this total wasteland. But they weren't as alone as they thought. Standing right on the edge of a cliff is someone with pointy ears and a long furry tail. A fox shirl was washing up in the hot spring steam, looking totally curious since humans are basically never seen in this land. Theo was up at the crack of dawn every single day to grind through sword practice with Layla. Right after training, he jumped into the muddy fields to harvest veggies, working like a beast without stopping until he finally got caught. Every night he and Layla would read together, and it was the perfect time for him to clear his head and plan his next move. Theo was actually living his best life and felt totally at home in the land of death. But he still had one huge problem. He couldn't get anyone to actually move into his growing town. He had a pretty sweet life, but he was actually chasing something way bigger. Even with Gorm, there are only 2 people living there, which isn't even enough to call it a village. Normally, anyone in his territory would just be a citizen, but this place is literally the land of death. He was just praying that some wanderers would randomly show up. Then out of nowhere, Theo caught some strange sounds coming from the fields. He got hyped for a split second, thinking someone had finally wandered onto his land. Theos was super hyped until he came face to face with a massive beast and got totally terrified. But then he felt this weird holy vibe coming off it that felt exactly like the goddess. While he's still confused, the monster actually speaks and tells him not to worry, which honestly just makes Theo freak out even harder. The beast introduces herself as Luna, and she's actually a legendary divine Fenrir wolf. The name Fenrir immediately makes Theo remember the stories of a giant wolf with the power of a god that's so rare, almost no one has ever seen it. Theo was totally freaked out, wondering how he was even supposed to fight a monster this scary. Luna asked if he missed her saying not to be scared, repeating that she wasn't there for a fight. She suddenly turned into a gorgeous woman, and Theo was totally caught off guard for a second. The wolf lady said sorry for scaring him and told him she actually had a huge favor to ask. She asked him if he could hook her up with some of those veggies. Surprise, she actually showed up just for that since she didn't feel any bad vibes at all. Theo was totally down and told her they had a massive haul, so she should definitely take some for herself. He just hands her a tomato, and the second they actually tasted it, she felt like she was in total heaven. The taste literally melted on her tongue and she was totally losing it with how good it was. She said it was the most delicious thing she'd eaten in a literal 1,000 years. 1,000 years ago, the air was totally fresh and the crops were solid, even if they weren't as crazy as Theo's. A massive war turned the whole place into a total toxic wasteland. Theo was totally shook to find out the toxic air was actually caused by a war, not some natural disaster. He asked if she really spent 1,000 years in the land of death, and she just nodded. The O basically told her she should think about moving to a new spot. Luna stayed totally chill and told them this land was her precious home. She just couldn't bring herself to leave, even though the place was a total ghost town. She was super happy that Theo made it look awesome again. She asked for his name and found out he's actually Theoflorian. She thanked him a ton for the food and for being so nice to her. The Theon sister didn't even want a reward for what she did. Luna refused to let her pain win because being kind was everything to her, so she leaned in close. Quiche leans in and gives her a super sweet kiss on the forehead. She called it a favor and a thank you, since that was the only thing she could give him for now. She gave him a reassuring pat and told him she hadn't felt this happy in forever. Just as Luna started to walk away, Theo remembered she'd been stuck in the land of death for 1,000 years, and suddenly had a total lightbulb moment. He shouted out to see if she'd join his kingdom, and Luna looked back totally shocked before teasing him with a cheeky grin. They asked if he was trying to tame a Fenrir, but Theo shut that down real quick. Luna laughed and patted his head, letting him know she was just messing with him. Luna told him she needed some time to think it over, because she had her own stuff to deal with, and his offer totally caught her off guard. She gave him a warm smile and promised that her next gift would be way more awesome, telling him he better get ready for what was coming next. Theoblis backed away as Luna shifted right back into her wolf form. She said her final goodbye and then totally vanished into the distance. Theo kept his meeting with Luna a total secret from Layla, because he knew she'd get super jealous, and he had no idea how she'd react. The next day started out looking totally normal for Theo. He had no clue his chill life was about to be totally wrecked. Out of nowhere, this lady shows up looking super tired and totally desperate. He begged for someone to help him right before he totally wiped out. Theo didn't waste a second and told Layla to go grab the first aid kit. A little while later, the girls show up right at Theo's room. She was totally lost and had no clue where she'd ended up, so she just blurted out, "Wait, where am I?" And Theo was honestly just stoked to see her finally wake up. He asked her if she was doing okay. She said she was doing fine even though she was still super dazed, and then she asked who they actually were. Theo introduces himself and Layla, explaining that he found her passed out right in front of his house. Aisha is super grateful and looks totally hyped to finally meet the group. Theo was totally caught off guard and asked her what she was even doing there. "Every time I try to remember, the fear just takes over and my head starts killing me." Theo kept pushing her to finally get some rest. He told Layla to rush back to the castle and grab some healing herbs. They're famous for their insane healing powers, making them perfect for patching up any nasty injuries. Turning these into super strong medicine was insanely hard and took some serious skills. But Theo's autocraft skill let him whip up super strong healing potions without even breaking a sweat. Aisha's jaw dropped when a potion just spawned right in Theo's hands. The second she drank it, all her wounds just disappeared in a flash. The pain just vanishes, like he was never even hurt in the first place. Aisha was totally shocked by the potion's insane power, and asked if Theo was a wizard or an alchemist, but he just shrugged and said either one works for him. She asked if they were finally getting close to Fornice. This massive fortress city is the only thing holding back the terrifying monsters from the land of death. The euclarified Fornice was way out there, miles away from the land of death's border in shocking Asia. She didn't even realize she'd wandered so deep into this creepy wasteland until her Theonotid proved her worst fears were totally right. Asha was totally crushed when she realized she'd gone the wrong way and had no clue what to do next. She started freaking out because everyone was counting on her, and she knew they were toast if she didn't move fast. Hesha revealed she's actually from Mo Village, located deep in the Veto territory. Just a few days ago, goblins swarmed the town and the helpless villagers didn't stand a chance. The goblins demanded food, but they just kept getting greedier and wouldn't stop asking for more. The villagers tried to say they were starving, but the goblins just hit them with an even scarier demand. These guys demanded that every single woman be handed over. Goblins being around humans always ends in a total nightmare. The villagers say no, so the goblins threaten to start taking them out one by one. "I should have stepped up and found some backup for her people." Theo asked her why she was targeting outsiders instead of just going for the Lord of Atoa. She told him she'd already given that a shot. The Lord totally blew Aisha off, saying he was way too busy to deal with some tiny village in the middle of nowhere. Theore remembered how the Lord of Bitoa was a total nightmare, taxing his people into the ground and leaving them to starve even when they were begging for help. She knew her people were in trouble and had to head out, but she made sure to thank Theo for looking after her first. Just as she started to turn away, Theo stopped her and told her to wait up. He showed her a warehouse packed with building supplies, totally flexing how he'd prepped for an emergency. Layla totally recognized that stash, but she had no idea what Theo was actually planning to do with it. Theo told her to watch closely as he showed off a new autocrat power that works just like a video game inventory. With a quick wave of his hand, all those items just vanish into thin air. He cleared out the whole warehouse until there was literally nothing left. Asha's jaw hit the floor as she asked where the gear went, and Theo just played it cool, saying it was basically magic. He's got it all stashed away in a private dimension he built himself. He asked her to lead the way and take them straight to her village. He was totally locked in and ready to help, no matter how long the trip was. A little while later, Theo, Layla, and Aisha were riding Gorm straight to Mo Village. Hesha asked Theo if he was really sure about his plan, and even though she was down to save the village, she warned him that things were about to get super dangerous. Orsted gets serious and tells her she's just gotta trust him. He didn't even blink at those scary goblins. Suddenly he felt a massive burst of courage. He thought back to Luna's favor, and wondered if it was giving him a massive confidence boost, so he used his analysis skill to see what was really going on. Fenrir's blessing gave him insane leg strength, the guts to face any fear, and a special power that makes every wolf creature bow down to him. Feeling totally pumped, Theo gave a quick mental shout-out to Luna for giving him the guts to keep going. A sharp point stabs him right in the head. Theo was absolutely fuming when he saw how those goblins were torturing the villagers. He was right on the edge of totally losing his cool. He ordered Gorm to charge straight into those goblins. He tells Layla and Asha to get ready to jump off Gorm the second he gives the signal. They finally reached the OSQ and just went for it, jumping right in. Jorm smashed into the goblins like a total wrecking ball, sending them flying everywhere, while Gorm charged in like a pro wrestler storming the ring. Right in the middle of the air, Theo used autocraft to whip up a soft pad for his landing. They landed safely, but Theo ended up totally stuck between Layla and Aisha in the most awkward way ever. He's totally trapped between them with zero way to escape. And then there's Theo flustered Isha. He dodged the hit and got out of there in a total blur. Goblins swarmed in from every side, just waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Theo told Aisha to stay back because it was way too dangerous for her. She kept arguing, but Thea stepped in to tell her everything was going to be okay. He was 100% sure he could save every single person in the village. Seeing how locked in he was made Aisha's heart race like crazy. She turned bright red because she was totally flustered by a younger guy, and you can tell their whole vibe is about to change. Theo and Layla squared up, ready to take those goblins down. Layla whipped out her sword while Theo triggered Autocrat, summoning his entire inventory. In a split second, thousands of swords surrounded him, giving off total Gilgamesh vibes. Layla sliced through those goblins like a total pro. They teamed up with Theo and absolutely wrecked the entire horde. He turned the whole place into a total war zone with monster bodies scattered everywhere. The surviving goblins were totally freaked out and scrambled away to warn their boss. Leah was ready to charge after them, but Theo held her back, reminding her that keeping the villagers safe was the most important thing right now. The villagers rushed over to Theo, thanking him like crazy for saving their lives, and straight up asked who this guy actually was. Theo truthfully introduced himself as the third prince of the Fornicate Kingdom, and the legendary lord of the Land of Death. Aisha and the villagers were totally stunned, and you could tell everyone was getting a really bad vibe. Thea immediately regretted being so honest since he knew these villagers hated royals, and he really wished he'd just kept his title a secret. He was totally shocked when the villagers actually got super hyped to find out he was a prince. They kept thanking him like crazy for the rescue, but Theodown just played it off like it was no big deal. He warned them to stay sharp since he heard the goblins talking about reporting back to their big boss. It looked like their hideout was tucked away in the woods, and back at the base, the goblins who escaped told their chief they totally failed. The goblins warned their boss that the village was way too dangerous to mess with. Rage the Goblin King absolutely wrecked a goblin in one hit, calling him a total coward for trying to run away. He rounded up the rest of his goblins and marched off, swearing he'd show those humans who's really in charge. Back at the village, Chief Galagmobile gave Theo a massive thank you for saving everyone's lives. Theo just shrugged it off, saying he was only doing what was right. But the chief was totally dead set on giving them a gift. It was nothing but a mysterious-looking stone. Layla was totally stunned. He said this metal is super rare and crazy strong, used for treasures worth hundreds of gold coins. One villager went ballistic on the chief for handing their legendary treasure to those royals, but Chief Gallagher immediately shut him up. They kept shouting that Theo earned some serious respect for saving all their lives. The guy wouldn't budge, insisting that those fancy royals would never risk their lives for regular people. And Theo was actually playing everyone, getting the whole village on board for his own secret plan. The villagers started whispering and arguing, and it was super clear they didn't trust those nobles one bit. Theo noticed they were getting super nervous, but Asha and Dravine stepped in to protect him. She reminded everyone that Theo isn't like their usual lord, since he actually saved their lives even though he was a total stranger. She speaks up, trying to chill everyone out before things get crazy. The villagers finally gave Theo his props, but his words were still stuck in everyone's heads. Chief Galad was dead set on giving Theo the gift, but Theo turned him down because he knew it was their most precious treasure. But then the chief dropped a bombshell. The whole village is literally on the brink of falling apart. Theo wanted to know why the chief was so sure things were going to end in a total disaster. The chief told them all about a massive goblin king lurking in the forest nearby. These guys are way tougher and way smarter than your average goblin. Rupert's about to totally wreck those minotaurs and giants. He was sure those escaped goblins were going to come back with the Goblin King. They're screaming for the young kids to run for it while the old folks who can't move stay behind. Jack totally shut down the chief's orders and insisted they all get out together, but the chief argued the old folks would only slow the young ones down. Jack stood his ground, swearing he'd take down every single goblin himself before he'd ever leave a friend behind. Theo stepped up to help, promising that he wouldn't leave a single person behind. Aisha and the chief asked about the plan, but he told them the goblins were watching the village so closely that escaping was totally impossible. They turned the whole village into a fortress and get ready for a massive showdown. Jack sat by himself later, totally fuming and doubting Theo because he was sure that royal guy was hiding something. He remembered his dad's words about how the strongest guys are the ones who keep the village safe. Jack was sure he'd step into that role and finally level up. They didn't even need a royal like Theo to pull this off. Right then, Theo Eston catches Jack off guard by building a watchtower in a split second. He was left totally stunned and couldn't even find the words to speak. Thea asked for way more materials because what he had left was nowhere near enough. The chief gave him the green light to rip apart tools and buildings, and the villagers even handed over pieces of their own homes to help defend the place. Jack kept on fighting, but he was totally kicking himself for ever trusting Theo. But Theo uses his magic to throw up massive walls and keep the whole village safe. Totally wiped out from all that crafting, the O just straight up collapsed. Layla was totally panicking, rushing everyone along while she scrambled to get dressed. It was obvious that heat had totally pushed his powers way past their limit. Everfused was ready to go all out and protect the village with everything he had. He was finally starting to change his mind about him, even if it was just a tiny bit. Jack remembered how he totally froze up and was shaking with fear when those goblins attacked. They were so busy fighting that they couldn't do a thing to protect the village. He just saved everyone, and now he's jumping right back in to shield them one more time. Jack started heading straight for the rest of the group. He asked how he could step up and help keep the village safe. Theo finished making a spear and handed it to Jack, since everyone knew he was the village's #1 fighter. He said that if the defenses failed, everyone would be counting on him to save the day. Jack snatched up the spear but made it clear he still didn't trust the O, since he was only doing this to save his village. Jack was acting totally ice cold, but Theo thanked him anyway, only for Jack to snap back that he wasn't doing this to be nice. Theo caught Isha staring and asked her if something was up. She totally freaked out and denied staring, acting like she didn't even see him standing there. She reported that the kids and seniors were finally safe and asked what her next move should be. Theo promised her everything was totally handled now that the villagers were backing him up. The villagers started calling for him, so he gave Aisha a quick wave and sprinted off. Aisha just stood there, and it was super obvious she was catching major feelings for Theo. But suddenly, the peace was ruined by loud footsteps echoing out of the forest. The Goblin King and his massive army charged forward, ready to absolutely wreck the villagers. He just laughed at his lackey for being totally terrified of a tiny little village. He saw the perfect chance to terrorize the village and snatch the women to produce more of his kind. But he lost all that confidence the second he saw what the village had turned into. The villagers were all geared up with bows, arrows, and spears. With a massive wall and a watchtower guarding the place, the Goblin King was starting to sweat. He shouted at the goblins to turn around and get out of there. He promised not to hurt them as long as they just walked away quietly. But he warned them that if they took even one more step, he was gonna attack right away. He's absolutely losing it because they're treating him like he's weak. The Goblin King barked an order and his minions went charging straight into the fight. Theo was totally out of options, so he finally gave the villagers the signal to charge. And just like that, a massive force totally crushed the goblins in the front row. The surviving goblins are shaking with fear as they realize the attack came right from the watchtower. They stood right there while smoke poured out of the cannons. He straight up told the goblins that it was officially war. Then more cannon fire blasted through, wiping out even more of the enemies. A bunch of goblins hit the walls and start scrambling up like crazy. But the villagers at the top are waiting to shut them down with their spears. It was a move that had only ever been a theory. Theo gave the villagers a massive pep talk, getting them totally fired up to drive the invaders back. All while the Goblin King was totally fuming and ready to blow. He was totally caught off guard by how hard they were fighting back. He swings his sword and rips right through the ground. The shockwave was so intense it smashed the wall to pieces and sent the watchtower crashing down. Layla reached out and snatched Theo's e-fel, so he whipped up a cushion to keep the rest of the villagers safe. He barked at everyone to get to the shelter, and they all scrambled to safety. The Goblin King watched the whole fight and realized Theo was the one calling all the shots. They figured taking him out would finally end the whole fight. Layla pulled her sword and swore the Goblin King would have to go through her to get to Theo, even though the monster thought she was just a total nobody. The Goblin King finally figured out she was Theo's #1 teammate. He acted like a total big shot and tried to make a move on Layla, clearly obsessed with her insane strength and beauty. She totally shut him down and told him she's already loyal to someone else. He was so mad she turned him down that he figured she'd finally change her mind if he just killed the guy she actually loved. He orders his goons to catch her, but warns them not to mess up her face. Layla was totally fuming and demanded to know who he was planning to take out. She busts out her family's secret sword style and shreds those charging goblins into pieces. She lunged right at the Goblin King, seeing his next move before he even made it. But right as she was about to swing, a goblin snatched her. A whole swarm of goblins dogpiled Layla, pinning her straight to the ground. The Goblin King barked at his minions to snatch her up and keep her trapped. They turned toward Theo, but Layla breaks loose and starts absolutely shredding those goblins with her sword, and calls out the Goblin King to step up and face her. He totally ignored her and kept his eyes locked on the goal. Theo gets totally mobbed by goblins, and they're standing right between her and the king. Layla realized the goblins were only strong because there were so many of them. But she made a huge mistake and charged straight for the Goblin King anyway. She realized he totally baited her just to get her away from Theo, and she definitely shouldn't have slept on how smart he actually was. She screamed at Theo, telling him he had to get out of there right now. He promised that Gorm would step up and block every single attack from the Goblin King. She offered to bait the monster, but Thea totally shut her down. He argues that if they run away, the villagers are in serious danger. He used his powers to spawn a sword and decided to take on that goblin all by himself. They just laughed at his guts and called his determination straight up pathetic. Theo stepped up to the Goblin King just to see if he really had what it takes. He whips out a massive stone block straight from his inventory. The Goblin's cane just smacked it away like it was absolutely nothing. The OU didn't even flinch, standing tall right in the middle of the smashed watchtower's wreckage. He uses his autocrat skill to whip up a massive ballista in seconds. He let a bolt fly! But the goblin just snatched it out of the air like it was nothing. The Goblin King taunted asked if they were finally done playing games, since he was totally over messing around with kids. He pointed his sword and shouted for Theodai to show himself. Thea saw that magic slash and knew exactly what it was. The sword slammed down, blasting a shockwave that ripped the ground wide open. The Goblin King thought the whole fight was a total letdown and ended way too fast. He was totally thrown off when he felt something lurking right behind him. He was 100% sure he'd just finished the guy off for good. But Theo was already right above him, sword raised and ready to strike. He was taking a massive gamble and putting everything on the line. He uses his autocraft skill to instantly raise 5 earth blocks right under his feet. He dives out of the way just as the Goblin King tries to smash those blocks. He jumped right over the distracted Goblin King, taking his big chance to strike back. Theo was feeling super confident and ready to flex all the skills he'd picked up from training with Layla. He used a move he learned from Layla and smashed the Goblin King right in the back. But the sword just completely shattered into pieces. It didn't even leave a scratch on that monster's super tough skin. Theo was totally dazed when the Goblin King suddenly booted him into a tree like a soccer ball. The Goblin King gave a sarcastic slow clap, mocking the O for actually giving him a tiny scare. You could tell that sword was way sharper now. Theo was totally beat up, but he still forced himself to stand up and keep fighting. The Golan showed up ready to smash through everything and call checkmate right then and there. Out of nowhere, Jack bursts into the room screaming his head off. He thrusts his spear forward, forcing the Goblin King to back off. It snapped, and Jack was totally freaked out. Surprise, Theo, you totally didn't see this coming. You gotta wonder why Jack even jumped into this fight in the first place. Jack said the guys running from the front told him Layla was totally wrecking those goblins. But Theo stepped up and faced the Goblin King all on his own. Thea snaps at Jack for showing up, but he claps back that she'd be dead meat without him. The Goblin King was totally losing it and screamed that Jack was nothing but a Murapon. He raises his sword to finish him off for good. Theo jumped right in the way to shield Jack from the Goblin King's brutal swing. The Goblin King realized these humans are way too soft-hearted. It turns out Theo was his real target the whole time. Theo realized way too late that there was no way he could dodge. And there was no way that same trick was going to work a second time. A familiar face pops up as Luna the Fenrir lady gives Theo a friendly pat on the back, promising to totally have her back. Her Fenrir favor skill kicks in, and Theo's legs suddenly explode with a massive surge of power. Theo dodges the Goblin King's sword swing with some insane new speed. He totally caught the monster by surprise. The Goblin King didn't even flinch because Theo's sword was way too dull to actually hurt him. Theo wondered if his next move would actually work, thinking back to that super rare chalcome metal the chief gave him from the village's treasure. He used his autocraft skill to forge a razor-sharp sword, leaving Jack totally stunned. He remembered the chief calling that metal their guardian god, meant to protect them whenever things got dangerous. Chief Gilad was totally right, and now Theo is going hard with that Orkelcom sword and Layla's secret family technique. The Goblin King gets wounded, and Jack's jaw drops as the massive beast slams into the ground with a heavy thud. Totally spent, he realized he actually won and just passed out cold. Jack snatched him up right then and there, and they were all hyping him up. She begged Theo to just admit that Jack had done an awesome job too. Then they lock it in with a solid fist bump. They scrambled straight to the shelter to stay safe. That's where Theo finally shouted that the coast was clear. Isha is so happy she just grabs him in a super tight hug and starts crying her eyes out. Layla froze up, totally unsure if she should actually jump in. He sees Isha crying her eyes out while Theo tries his best to comfort her. He said it was all over because Lafelt was acting way too jealous. That night, the whole village threw a massive party to celebrate their big win. But then he ends up totally squished against Asia's chest, and man, things get super awkward. He's just standing there, trying to figure out how it all went down. Layla stares her down and gets right in her face, making Nisha so nervous that she calls her out for being a total bully. Layla pulled the Owe to a stop and offered her some food. Aisha fired back with her own move, and just like that, a secret rivalry was born. The chief just laughed at their wild energy. even when Theo stepped up to ask for help. He wasn't about to be a buzzkill and ruin their fun. You could see the whole village was finally happy, and it was all thanks to Theo. He spent every day joking about how he wanted their lord to finally be finished. Theo felt a huge spark of inspiration and quickly dipped out. He put together a quick stool and hopped up to give the villagers a big speech. He straight up asked them to join him and become citizens in the land of death he ruled. They froze in their tracks because they knew exactly how dangerous this thing really was. Theo told them he was taking his power back, but he needed the whole squad to make it happen. Jack was totally down and didn't hesitate for a second. He didn't believe it at first either, but now he's telling anyone who's doubting him to just stay behind. Aisha and the chief jumped right into the action too. He's pushing him to finally tell the truth. Even more villagers throw their hands up, shouting Theo's name at the top of their lungs. Their new leader just gave them another huge reason to celebrate. That night, the whole village went wild and partied with drinks until the sun started coming up. Theo and the squad head out, with Theo stashing all the gear and even the old folks in his inventory while Gorm gets stuck pulling the wagon. After hiking for half a day, they finally made it to Theo's empty wasteland. The only thing there was this one house standing all alone in the middle of a massive field. O could feel everyone getting super tense, so he finally made his move. He starts pulling the villagers' houses right out of his inventory. He just uses autocraft to snap all the pieces together in a flash. He'd already cooked up a secret plan with Layla for their new home. He threw together some basic houses for now, but he's totally planning to upgrade them into something way better later. They built an entire village in no time at all. Aisha was a total mystery that nobody could figure out. Layla realized this was exactly what the O had in mind for their big plan. Just like that, Theo blacked out because building all that stuff instantly totally drained him. He snaps his eyes open and realizes he's finally back in his own house. He realized he was gassing out way too fast and seriously needed to work on his stamina. Aisha, look at me. I'm finally back in top shape and ready for action. They walk in to check on him and Theo gets totally flustered. Lila explains that she's putting Aisha through some serious maid training. He finally saw just how strong she could really become. She gives her a quick smack for not calling him master, and you can totally tell she's super jealous. Theo told Aisha to stop being so formal because it was just making things super awkward. He asked about the villagers, super worried they'd actually hate their new home. But then Layla pointed straight at the window. Theo looked over and saw them all having a total blast. Esh's report made it official. They were seriously hyped up. Theo finally let out a huge sigh of relief, feeling good just knowing his people were happy. Now he's trying to figure out his next big move with all these new people. At the same time, let's check out what's happening in the Fornia Kingdom's capital. King Goss was totally hyping up Alice Scarlet's latest big win to everyone in Scarred. Alice just shrugged it off, saying it's just what heroes do. The king tells her the goddess would definitely approve, and Alice Latz just hits him back with a super sarcastic thank you. Her friends Sama and Martina are super nervous, warning her she better watch her mouth when they meet the king. The king decided to throw a massive party and said they should definitely invite his son, Theo. She froze up, thinking about their bond, and thanked Alice for putting up with Theo, telling her she didn't have to stress over him anymore. Alice is totally lost until she finally finds out the truth about Theo. The goddess called him a total loser and dumped him, banishing him straight to the land of death. They're probably dead or just gone for good. Alice is totally losing it as she swings her Griptor sword. Everyone is fighting for the chance to take out the king. Santa shut her up quick, acting all nervous and saying Alice was just tired so he could end the talk right there. San ditched the party and pulled Alice away with some random excuse. Once they're outside, Alice gets in Sana's face and demands to know why she stopped her. Santa called her totally reckless, warning that taking out the king would be a death sentence for everyone. Alice was totally losing it over Theo being kicked out, but Sana told her to show the king some respect while still feeling for her friend. Alice immediately shut down any talk of a crush, swearing that Theo definitely wasn't her future husband. Now that Theo was kicked out to the land of death, Alice insisted they get out of the capital immediately. He was completely done with the royal family and just wanted to cut them off forever. She was just about to head out when Neil suddenly showed up out of nowhere. He flexed his new title as Crown Prince and acted like Alice's goddess blessing was a joke, calling her a total commoner and demanding she show him some respect. Alice didn't care and started to walk away, but Neil stopped her in her tracks and asked her to be his partner, leaving her completely stunned. He told everyone the first prince vanished and Theo was kicked out, setting himself up to be the next king. He wanted the people to trust Alice so she could help him rule, claiming it was the only way to save her from fighting monsters forever. Alice laughed right in Neil's face, mocking his massive ego and listing off every reason why he was wrong. He started to wonder if he was even cut out to be king. She really loved being the one to keep everyone safe. She straight up refused to marry that stuck-up loser. She swore to always have Theo's back and straight up blamed Niels for getting him kicked out. They see him as a total enemy, just like the king. Alice's words totally set Niels off and he was absolutely fuming. They rushed over to spread the word about how Theo was blowing up. He lets his magic explode and starts trashing Theo, asking if he's even worth the fight. Martina's jaw dropped when she felt just how insane Niels' magic really was. Alice looks him in the eye and asks if this is actually his gift. Niels was totally flexing his insane sage powers to everyone. He's flexing infinite magic and total control over the elements, calling himself completely unbeatable. Alice just rolled her eyes because this guy was acting way too full of himself. And he basically told everyone they better bow down to him. He lets loose a deadly jigger fire spell that's straight up lethal. Alice cut that fireball in half like it was nothing. He could tell right away that Neil was a total rookie with zero training. Before he could even move, she smacked him so hard he went tumbling back. Niels was absolutely fuming and swore he'd make them pay for laying a finger on a prince. But Alice just handed the job over to Martina. Alice acted without thinking, but she still healed Niels in a heartbeat. Alice mocked Niels, asking what she'd even done and when he'd actually sworn to get his revenge. She dared him to finally admit he got rejected and lost by writing it all down in a journal. He's finally been pushed to his absolute breaking point. Niels swore he'd make Alice and Theo's lives a total nightmare, but Alice just smirked and told him she'd definitely remember that. Then he leads Sana and Martina right out of there. He was totally locked in and had to find Theoli right this second. Theo put his autocrafting to work and started pumping out a bunch of farming tools. The farmers finished up their work and thanked him for the help, but Theo just played it cool and wished them the best. He asked Layla if there was anything left to do, and she told him the village's water system was totally busted. Asha showed up with a basket full of the sandwiches everyone asked for, and Theo gave her a quick thanks for feeding the whole crew. The once dead land was totally buzzing with life again, as everyone teamed up to fix the place back up. He was so hyped that he planned to level up the whole place with their help. Suddenly, the alarm bells started screaming as news hit that a massive wolf was attacking the village. Theo knew that wolf instantly and charged right at it while the rest of the villagers grabbed their weapons. The wolf begged them to drop their weapons, swearing she wasn't looking for a fight. The Orivd finally showed up, totally hyped to see it was actually Luna. She was totally relieved to finally see him after waiting for so long. Welcome to the hazy chaos of Smoke's world. And just like that, Luna shifted into her human form. She pulls Theo in close and gives him a super tight hug. She told him he was finally stepping up, betting he'd just barely make it out of trouble alive. Theo owned up to his struggles and asked her straight up why she even showed up. Luna was caught off guard, wondering if she totally forgot to mention the awesome gift she promised for their next hangout. Theo stayed on high alert, totally suspicious of what she was planning in broad daylight. He totally tensed up as Luna reached out and touched his chin. She leans in for a kiss, but right before she can make her move, Layla jumped in at the last second to block a sword strike meant for Luna. She's telling her she better stay away from Theo. Luna could tell that Layla was straight up hating on her. Layla accused Luna of trying to steal something from Theo that's worth way more than any treasure, but Luna just smirked and dared her to actually do something about it. Theo jumped in to explain that Luna was just acting as a Fenver heat mat while Layla slept, but Layla instantly recognized her as the Rupert thieving wolf. Things were getting super intense, so everyone pushed Luna to finally explain what was going on. Luna finally stopped messing around and broke down how her keys actually work. She had to get back on Fenmer's good side. He actually got that power earlier from a quick kiss on the forehead. She had to start with just a little so Theo's body wouldn't freak out, explaining that a quiche was the perfect way to pass him the gift while it settled in. Layla wasn't buying it for a second, and asked Luna if those were really the last words she wanted to say. Theo begged her to put the weapon down, but Layla was convinced that Luna had totally ruined his innocence. That's when it finally clicks for Luna that Layla is super jealous. Layla's face turned bright red as she tried to play it off and deny everything. She claims she was just looking out for Theo, but she's totally the one who ended up stealing his first kiss. He tells her it's finally time for her to return the favor. Theo and Layla were totally stunned and started grilling her for answers. Luna cleared things up and revealed that Layla could actually give Theo her own special favor. Layla wasn't sure if she could actually share her power, but Luna told her it was totally possible. He noticed Layla's sword swings were way more powerful than any normal humans. Luna explains that super rare humans chosen by the gods can actually pass their powers to someone else. That means Layla could totally share hers with the O. Luna agreed and told him they should just kiss right now since they were both finally human. He told Layla to hurry it up, since he didn't care one bit who started the fight. Theo jumped in, asking why they thought he'd side with Layla, but Luna just asked if he had a problem with it. Theo stressed that they couldn't just rush in blindly because they had to keep Layla's feelings in mind. Layla was totally ready to take Theo down at a moment's notice. Luna teased her for being so hyped, while a super red Aisha asked if they were really gonna kiss right there in public. Theo told Layla to just chill and not feel any pressure. She straight up told him she really wanted his love, but only if he was actually into it. Lyle's hands are shaking like crazy, and even Theo is totally hesitating. He admitted it was his first time making quiche and might taste bad, but Layla didn't care since she was a total newbie too. Then he reaches out and gently touches your cheeks. He leans in for a super awkward kiss. He's wondering if he really should have pulled back his favorite transfer. He was totally confused when Layla didn't even say a word back. He was totally stunned when she suddenly passed out cold. Everyone was completely losing their minds, but Luna didn't even flinch. She totally lost it and started cracking up because she thought Layla was just too funny. Luna flashed a big smirk and shouted that she was up next. But they had to wait for Layla's favor to settle down first so Theo wouldn't get totally stressed out. Since her plan was a total bust, she switched gears to her next move. He called the kids forward just as a pack of wolves suddenly showed up. He's barking like crazy and jumping up to say hello. Out of nowhere, Theo catches everyone off guard by asking about the wolves. Luna explained that they were actually fender pups, and she wanted him to be the one to look after them. It wasn't even hers, it was actually her sister's. She teased Theo by asking if he thought she was already taken, making it super obvious that she's actually single. O didn't care about the risks, and agreed to look after the pups, even though Luna warned him that these rare creatures were basically a magnet for trouble. Theo gave the pup a gentle pat and promised Luna he'd totally welcome them. He made his choice so fast it totally caught her off guard. Luna turns bright red as she thanks Tim. He told the pups to show some major love to their new caretaker, Theo. The pups are worming their way straight into Theo. They kept licking him until he was totally swallowed up by all that fur. Fast forward 1 week, and the pups are having a total blast hanging out with the villagers. He's just hanging out with the kids, eating good food, and helping out with all the farm work. Asha fed the group, but Theo was totally getting mobbed by their super sweet licks. Felt watched the whole thing and felt a sharp sting of jealousy. But he spotted one pup acting totally shy, hiding the second he looked its way. Loon pops up and tells Adrush that the pooch's shyness is actually a major problem. She totally caught Theo off guard, appearing out of nowhere in an amazing new outfit. Luna wanted to wear basically nothing, but Theo told her that wouldn't fly in the village, so she teased him and asked if he was just jealous of other people seeing her like that. Theon started asking questions about what the pub was like before. Luna dropped the news that it was actually the youngest one. She told the sad story of how her big sister died right after the baby was born. Theo was totally stunned when Luna told him that the poor pup had never actually felt a mother's love before. Luna tried her absolute best to step up, but she knew she could never truly replace the pup's real mom. This made the little guy super shy and he stayed away from everyone, but Theo totally understood what was happening. It really looked like Luna wasn't done talking yet. Theo Kooten steps up and offers to be the little pup's new best friend. Luna was totally stunned and couldn't even say a word. He was totally floored by Theo's offer and started panicking that he'd gone way too far. Luna flashed a quick smile to ease his mind, telling him he's exactly the guy she was looking for, and that she's super hyped to be on his land. Theodown finally showed everyone exactly what he's capable of. But Luna totally caught him off guard with a perfectly firm quiche. Theo was caught totally off guard as Luna grabbed his chin in a super tight grip while he tried to squirm away. Luna finally backed off, leaving Theo a blushing mess as he demanded to know what her deal was. She acted like it was no big deal, saying she was just paying back a favor they'd both totally forgotten about. Then Luna asked Theo to keep a close eye on the super shy pup. Theo wasn't sure if he could actually pull it off, but he promised to give it everything he had. Odin stops for a second, then tries to get the youngest pup to come out and play, but it stayed far back, just scurrying away. He saw it barely even ran away, which meant it wasn't actually scared of him. Theo challenges them to a game of tag and straight up offers to be it first. It looked like the little pup totally got the idea. It starts barking and zooms off to go play. Theo had a massive grin on his face as he chased the puppy all over the village. That fender pup was tiny, but it was moving way faster than anyone expected. He realized right away that it was actually just Fennel. Theo God is getting dead serious now that he's finally unleashing his autocrat skill. He summons a massive wall of earth to stop it right in its tracks. He lunged forward and tried to snatch it. But the pup easily cleared the walls and started parkouring across the rooftops. Theo didn't quit and kept throwing up more walls just to slow the pup down. But it just kept slipping away from them every single time. Slowly but surely, Theo started getting the upper hand, and that little pup just couldn't hide the massive grin on its face. An hour later, Theo was totally gassed and huffing for air. The little pup suddenly froze in his tracks. He's barking with a huge grin and a wagging tail, totally loving every second of the chase. The Obolited yelled out that the real game was only just beginning. The chase was back on until the pup suddenly lost his footing and tumbled right off the roof. Theo spots the danger and instantly fires off his autocrath skill, making a massive trampoline right underneath. He used Fenrir Favor to get a massive boost and shot himself right off the trampoline. He snatches the falling pup right out of the air. Then he whipped up a soft cushion to make sure he landed safely. They hit the ground without a single scratch. Theo bragged to everyone that he finally caught the pup. The Fenrir pup let out a bark and pouted, looking super annoyed. Theo wondered if the little guy wanted to go again, and right then Luna showed up, totally hyped that the pup was finally vibing with him. They're calling him a total natural at charming those fennels. Theo just kept telling Puzzle that they were totally friends now. Luna flashed a super warm smile. He catches them snuggling up on the cushion, but things move fast right after. Theo started hanging out with one of the Fenrir pups and named him Soak, since the little guys didn't have names yet. Luna told Theo he had to name every single one of them, and he was totally hyped to be their official godparent. Theo was getting totally pumped up just watching Layla show the villagers how it's done. She was absolutely tossing them around like rag dolls during their training drills. He's pushing these guys to level up as soldiers and mocks them every single time they hit the dirt. Theo was getting a total bad vibe from how harsh his maid was acting. Up until now, the village had actually stayed safe and hadn't been wrecked by any monsters. A few people tried to get close to Alila and the soldiers, but Gorm stepped in and shut them down. But O'Neill knew he couldn't drop his guard just yet. He was ready to do anything to save the village, so he used his autocrath skill to build some massive, super strong walls. Theo was dying to finish his new weapon, but he was still missing some of the stuff he needed. Later that night, he finished his shower and headed straight back to his room. Then he built this epic sauna that everyone absolutely loved. It cracked him up that Gorman was having the most fun out of everyone. Seeing the villagers so hyped really put a smile on his face. He never expected the Gulm to be such a huge fan. A bit later, Layla heads over and walks right into Theo's room. He gave her major props for working so hard to train the whole village. Layla looked super nervous as she thanked him. Theo Gru is looking super worried right now. He noticed she'd been acting super weird ever since that kiss made her pass out. That's when Layla finally said sorry for what happened back then. Rushing in with all that confidence actually wasn't a dumb move at all. Layla suddenly steps up and says she's been training her mind so she won't pass out again. Layla grabbed Theo and asked if she could renew that favor she gave him. Theo was totally lost, but then she reminded him of Luna's rule about settling small favors before trying to offer anything huge. He looks over and sees that Lyle is shaking like crazy. Theo saw how hard she was pushing herself and told her she really needed to chill out. He really wanted to show her that her feelings actually mattered to him. Layla finally snapped and totally lost her cool. She wanted to move fast, but she was totally planning to pin the whole mess on Theo. But before he could even explain what was up with Layla quiche him. Theo was totally overwhelmed as she just kept on kissing him. She gives him a gentle push right onto the cot. She put every ounce of her love into those non-stop quasias. He doesn't even stop for a second. By the next morning, Theo was totally wiped out. Layla was totally pumped up and jumped right back into training the villagers with a huge smile. Theo headed out to the fields to see how the crops were doing. He spotted a total stranger asking for a taste of the veggies. The guy with animal ears took a bite and started shouting in French about how amazing it tasted. He couldn't believe how sweet and juicy the veggies were and offered to buy them right on the spot. They're super curious, so they walk right up to the guy. He was way more interested in the Fenrir pup hanging out nearby. This mysterious guy started wondering just how much cash he could get for the pup's fur. Okan was absolutely losing it as he got right in his face, demanding to know what he was going to do to his friend. And you're definitely going to ask who this guy really is. This stranger introduces himself as Lauren from the Bastia Company, then suddenly whips out a hairbrush and asks for a sample of the pup's fur. Suddenly, Jack pulls up on Gorm's back and calls Lauren out for breaking in. Lauren kept swearing up and down that he didn't do anything wrong. Lauren thought it was crazy to see people farming in a place where everything is supposed to be dead, so he went to take a closer look. Just seeing Gorm there made it obvious that a total pro-alchemist lived in that spot. Lauren thought the village was super cool and was dying to see what else was hidden there. Out of nowhere, Theo traps Lauren inside a magic cage. He was gonna hold him there until he could figure out what he was really up to. Lauren was actually super impressed, totally loving the unique magic and the way the cage felt. After seeing Gorm, the Fenrir pup, the crops, and Theo's magic, Lauren called the village a total paradise and a massive treasure chest. He was literally thanking the gods for his insane luck, but Theo started getting a bad feeling about what Lauren was actually up to. Right then, the villagers came bursting in with some seriously bad news. 10 earth dragons are charging straight for the village, and they'll be there in just 20 minutes. Theo's jaw dropped because taking down even one earth dragon was already a total nightmare. But 10 at the same time was totally unheard of, even in a place as crazy as the Land of Death. Warren suddenly spoke up, wondering if these earth dragons were hunting him down just because he broke into their nest. They pieced the whole thing together in record time. Lauren finally admitted that those dragons were probably right on his tail. Theo was totally shocked because this guy didn't just sneak into her village. He actually led a pack of killer monsters straight to their front door. Theo was already stressing about what other kind of trouble this guy was going to stir up. Earth dragons don't have wings, but they're easily the toughest ones of the bunch. Theo was totally losing it because Lauren brought those monsters right to their house, while Warren just kept swearing it was all a huge mistake. He said he just took a quick peek inside their nest and totally didn't expect them to start chasing him. He even bragged about outrunning them, calling it a wild game of tag that he thought was awesome. Theo remembered that earth dragons are usually super chill farm animals, so it was totally weird that they'd ditch their nest just to hunt down Lauren. Theo knew Lauren's drama was just the start of a much bigger secret. He didn't care and made Lauren stay locked in the cage while the village handled the dragon attack. Warren was totally freaking out, begging them not to leave him behind. While all that was going down, the villagers were being rushed into a secret underground bunker. Everyone was straight up terrified when they heard 10 earth dragons were on the way. Hisha told everyone to chill out, pointing out that this village was way harder to break into than their last one. She said their soldiers trained like beasts every single day, and she was totally sure Theo and the crew could protect the village from the walls. They finally started getting everything ready for the big plan. Theo spotted the earth dragons from way off as they finally moved into range of the cannons. Luna showed up right then, ready to jump in and help out. Theo thanked her but told Lila she needed to hold back for now. He knew it was way too risky to send in their strongest warriors right away. He had no clue how much that toxic air had actually powered up the monsters. He also wanted to see if those cannons were actually enough to stop them. Getting the soldiers totally hyped for the fight, a villager screamed that the earth dragons were still way out of range. Theo told his squad to get ready and wait for his signal to open fire. All the cannons blast off at the exact same time! He launched his sword like a cannonball and slammed it straight into the monsters, making the whole ground shake like crazy. Theo let out a huge sigh of relief because they actually nailed the target. But those earth dragons didn't even flinch and just kept charging straight ahead. Theo was totally stunned when he realized those beasts hadn't slowed down one bit. He started wondering if they were actually tough enough to keep standing. The soldiers started to freak out, worried that their cannons weren't doing a single thing. Even Theo was starting to sweat and thought about calling Layla and Luna. But he was worried that insane armor would be too much for them, or that something crazy might go down. Theo was convinced his half-finished weapon could actually take down the dragons. But it didn't have the super-powered magic vision it needed to actually work. He's gonna have to rip it right out of a dragon. That's when Lauren showed everyone he actually had the dragon majesty Theo needed. Theo's jaw dropped when he saw the guy was already out of the cage. Lord admitted he broke out because he was super curious and really wanted to get his hands on Theo's gong. Theo started grilling him, demanding to know if his magic sight was actually legit. Lauren just showed it off like it was no big deal. He even whipped out a certificate to prove it was the real deal. Theo already used his appraisal skill to make sure it was the real deal. But he was still stuck wondering why Lauren was the one who had it. Lauren's share was planning to trade it to the elves just to make some serious cash. Theo was totally confused, so Lauren told her about the rumors of elves in a northern village hidden deep in the land of death. He was hunting them down for a massive payday, but that village was still nothing more than a legend. Lauren saw a huge opportunity in Theo's village, calling the whole place a total gold mine. Theocard is the real reason behind everything. Lauren's hooking you up with the magic site if you want to see more videos like this. Theo saved the town and signed a massive deal with Lauren's Bastia company, who immediately started listing off the rules. He thought Theo would need some time to think it over, but Theo didn't even hesitate and said yes right away. He knew that magic site was their only shot at surviving, so he teamed up with an outsider to help the village, even though he didn't trust Lauren one bit. Theo could tell this deal was going to be a total game changer. Warren was left totally dazed for a split second. He agreed and shook Theo's hand to seal the deal. He finally admitted he totally underestimated how fast the O's would actually make a move. Lauren just handed over the magic site. He was totally blown away when he saw it fit perfectly into the magic cannon Theo just finished. One look at that magic weapon and everyone was dying to see how much power it really had. Theo skipped all the boring tests and shouted to just use it right now. He was totally sure this thing was way more powerful than any basic cannon. All it takes is one quick press of a button. The magic cannon blasts a massive beam of light, slamming straight into the earth dragons charging right at them. A massive explosion just completely rocked Gulf Theoria. That massive blast stunned everyone, and even Lauren was left totally speechless. And man, you could tell he was totally blown away. The O2 was totally blown away by that insane power. One of the villagers checked and saw that the earth dragons were totally wiped out. And just like that, everyone started cheering like crazy. Aisha and the villagers who got away hear the crowd going wild. They finally felt like they were totally in the clear. But as the dust finally clears, a massive swarm of wyverns suddenly bursts out from everywhere. Theo shot Lauren a death stare, and she finally saw that he wasn't the one to blame. If it wasn't Lauren, Theo wondered what else was actually creeping around in the land of death. But things were about to get way worse because the magic cannon was still recharging, and regular cannons were totally useless against those wyverns. Layla and Luna finally stepped forward, ready to show everyone what they've got. They were totally hyped to fight, shouting that this was finally their big moment as they stared down those wyverns without even breaking a sweat. Layla says it's been forever since she fought those dragonlight monsters, and Luna admits she's totally out of practice. The old guy was seriously glad he kept them right by his side earlier. He told him to hold back the enemies, but warned him not to push himself too hard. That magic cannon needed 10 whole minutes to charge back up. He told his soldiers to get the rest of the cannons ready to blast. Warren was totally losing his cool, asking Thea if she even realized how many wyverns were actually out there. He screamed at them to get out of there as fast as they could. Layla and Luna told him he seriously needed to keep his cool. He swore he'd take down every single wyvern in just 10 minutes flat. They launched themselves right off the wall. Luna shifted her hands, turning them straight into her massive fenderer paws. Layla whipped out her sword, ready to throw down. Odo warned Lauren that wyverns are straight up deadly once they take to the air. We're talking shark claws, killer teeth, and straight up fire breath. But he reminded them that they had a top-rank adventurer and a Fenrir on their team. Layla and Luna moved like a blur, tearing through almost every Wyvern in their path. The Theobost were the absolute strongest warriors in the entire village. He learned the move, watched for his opening, and then he finally struck. Before long, the last of the Weverage are dropping just like a bunch of dead bugs. Luna was low-key getting annoyed that this was taking way longer than she expected. Layla just took out one more wyvern than Luna did. We were all whispering about how Layla seriously hates losing. She said she didn't even care about being the prince's wife, making Layla totally freak out and scream that they weren't even together. Luna started complaining about having to fight even more weapons while still holding back her real power. Layla was totally lost and asked her what she was even talking about. Suddenly, more of those weird ripples started closing in from a totally different direction. The final standoff is finally going down. Even Luna can tell that something is seriously off in this land of death. They were way too far out to make it back to the village in time. Theo totally panicked and shouted for the regular cannons to let loose. But they just couldn't land a hit on those enemies flying way up in the air. That magic cannon was taking way too long to charge up. Justice Theothod was totally lost. But then a juror showed up and told him to just leave everything to her. She swung her sword just once and sliced those wyverns clean in half like it was nothing. Everyone was losing their minds, but Theo was definitely the most shocked of them all. Suddenly, you realize exactly what move she's pulling off. The girl turns around and locks eyes with Theo. He just said it's been way too long since they last saw each other. Alice had been hunting for Theo this whole time, and now she finally steps out into the open. Theo asked what she was doing there, and she told him she heard he got kicked out and figured he'd be feeling pretty lonely. Theo insisted he wasn't actually crying, but he still thanked her for being so worried about him. Alice immediately acted like she wasn't worried at all. Just then, Layla and Luna showed up. They were dying to know more about that massive attack. Layla was totally shook when she saw Alice standing right there. Alice was just as shocked to see Layla standing right there. Check. Lay-like is weird. Is it lay-felt or lay-feeling? Lay felt super grateful for Alice's help, but then he headed straight. He volunteered to take the fall for failing the wyvern hunt, even starting to strip down so he could take the physical punishment himself. O'Hurry Lee stopped her right there, telling her she'd already done enough, and it was time to get dressed. Lunar pulls Theo into a big hug. She starts teasing him, demanding a prize for all her hard work. Yo, what's up guys, it's Shep! She pulls Theo into a huge hug, thanking him for keeping the whole squad safe. Alice completely froze when she saw 2 more Jurls standing right there with Layla. She looked around and saw a village that was totally buzzing with people. Her plan to comfort a lonely Theo just got totally blown to pieces. Alice suddenly drops to her knees, and Theo immediately asks her what's going on. A bit later, she headed over to check out the village hot springs. She muttered that her dream of a chill, happy life with Theo was totally trashed. Martina was totally losing her cool with Alice's non-stop whining, but San Hustler was ready to step up. Alice went all the way to the land of death just to have her dreams crushed, and she couldn't even see Theo since he was stuck grinding for dragon materials. The girls were totally shocked to find such a chill bath right in the middle of this literal death zone. Marina said this was the absolute biggest surprise ever. Nobody ever expected a kicked-out prince to have skills like these. Alice wasn't even shocked since she already knew about Theo's insane auto-crafting skill, and she finally admitted she'd been hiding the fact that he was actually born with this power. She remembered how he used to tell her all his secrets back when they were just kids. She figured everyone already knew the truth, so she finally stopped hiding it and let out a huge sigh of relief. Layla suddenly shows up, totally blown away that Alice knew Theo's secret this whole time. Alice saw Layla's face and realized she actually had no clue. Layla started bragging that Theo trusted her more than anyone, while the rest of the crew just laughed at how childish their leader was being. After finishing their bath, the three girls get totally busted. The Orivd looked totally sick and really made their whole style pop. Alice asked if he was done gathering materials, and once Thea said yes, the girls were totally blown away by the massive amount of loot they found. Alice wasn't surprised at all since she knew the land of death would be loaded, but Theo admitted the fight was a total nightmare and wasn't sure if they should be partying just yet. He asked about the outdoor baths, and Alice told him they were actually pretty awesome. Alice took a good look at Theo and realized he'd gotten way taller since the last time they saw each other 2 years ago. She thought he'd be totally depressed, but he was actually looking more hyped than ever. Theo was totally freaked out about being kicked out at first, but moving to the land of death actually turned out to be a massive win. Alice from Markey was looking way healthier than you ever did back in the capital. Theo couldn't help but notice that Alice had somehow gotten even more beautiful. Her face turned bright red as she yelled at him for acting all tough just because he got taller, but Theo just insisted he was telling the truth. Santa jumped in to explain that Alice was actually just super shy. Sound reveals that the second Alice heard Theo was kicked out, she totally lost it and went charging in to save him because she's crazy about him. Alice moves like a flash and smacks Rena right across the face. Santa told her to watch her mouth and kept venting to Theo about all the drama Alice was causing. Alice was begging him to stop, but Santa ignored her and blabbed about how she even punched needles. Marina was totally stunned that Alice would actually go to such crazy lengths. She saw that Alice was falling for Theo, and he felt the same way, even though he knew she was in serious danger. Alice admitted she totally lost it because Neil's mocking theory pushed her way past her limit. Theo's face turned red as he grabbed Gallus' hand and thanked her for totally having his back. Alice got super flustered and wondered why he was suddenly holding her hand. Marina and Santa were totally hyped, cheering for Alice to hurry up and get to Kasham. Alice stares right at Theo, looking more serious than ever. And right then you realize she's totally for real. Right at that exact moment, Lauren suddenly shows up and demands everyone's attention. Theo was totally shocked to see him, especially since he was all tied up. Theo didn't waste a second and asked what the heck happened. Lauren told him the villagers were blaming him for bringing those earth dragons around, and said he had to fix the mess he made. Lauren switched gears and offered to sell all that dragon loot in bulk to the Bastia company. Allison totally lost it, screaming about how much money those dragon parts are actually worth. Their scales are basically armor, their claws and fangs are deadly weapons, and that dragon blood makes for some seriously powerful medicine. Lauren already had the whole thing figured out. He tipped over and slammed straight down on his back. He uses his foot to finish drawing the symbols. He handed over the cash and told them it was enough to pay for all the materials. Alice was shaking, saying that much cash could buy a whole row of mansions, but Lauren just said it wasn't even close to enough. Theo reveals he's only selling half the loot, and Alice is totally shocked when he explains he gathered way more than he could ever actually use. Lauren tried to pay him way more, but Theo stuck to the normal price to close the deal. Thea used every last bit of her leftover cash to order a ton of supplies. Warren was totally blown away. They didn't think a young guy like Theo would realize that money is totally worthless in the land of death. Lauren was totally in, so Theo told her he was going to need a bunch of iron. They stopped mid-sentence when Alice's stomach suddenly growled like crazy. She turned totally red and admitted she hadn't eaten a single bite the whole time she was traveling to Theo. Theo was also totally starving. He figured the food was probably ready to go. When Lauren asks what's up, Theo tells him to tag along because they're about to feast on actual dragon meat. Theo got the victory party started by raising his mug high for a massive toast, while the whole crowd goes absolutely wild. Aisha and Layla finally show up, bringing out the main course for the big feast. They whipped up all kinds of dragon meat dishes that looked way more like sparkling treasure than actual food. The villagers were already drooling, totally hyped to finally feast on some dragon meat. Theo led the charge and was the first one to dig in. His eyes are literally glowing as he hypes up how amazing the food tastes. He'd been stuck eating nothing but veggies in the land of death, so this meat tasted absolutely insane. Alice looked super worried and asked if that meat was even safe to eat. This place is a total death trap, and that toxic air could make the dragon meat super dangerous to eat. Thea promised it was totally safe since his divine hoe scrubbed out all the poison, but Alice joked that only he would be crazy enough to use Huan meat. Theo kept pushing Alice to try the meat even though she was totally nervous about it. She takes a bite and suddenly freezes. They just got snatched up into the air by those massive flying wyverns. That super rich melt-in-your-mouth flavor was way too much for her to handle. She was totally blown away by how perfectly it was made. Theo gave a huge shout-out to Layla's May team for totally crushing it with those dishes. Alice was super curious, so she started asking all about the squad. Right nearby, Layla was putting the maids through a brutal test, and Theo realized these girls were actually way tougher than regular soldiers. As the night went on, the Fenrir pups finally jumped in to join the feast. Lorne honors Luna's memory with a super expensive bottle of wine. His shitked is busy going around and topping off everyone's drinks. Everyone was just having a total blast. Alice started poking fun at him for being way too serious. He joked that he'd stay tiny forever if he didn't start eating way more. She actually tried to feed him herself. Layla jumped in and warned Alice that she'd stop growing if she didn't finally get some rest. Alice totally snapped at Layla, telling her to back off and stop ruining her big moment with Theo. But then Layla just hands Theo the dragon stew right there, ignoring her. Alice is totally fed up, clinging to Theo and telling Layla she better back off. Layla yanked Theo way away, claiming she was just protecting the prince from all those annoying pests, and she'd already totally won him over. Alice was totally losing it and demanded to know what was going on between them, calling them both shameless while Theatre tried to chill her out and explain the whole situation. Alice finally figured out how to win them over, but she was still totally salty about it, especially since a beast woman is getting caught up in the middle of it. She acted totally fearless and straight up said she was fine with being turned into nothing but CO2. Theo's totally caught off guard and starts blushing like crazy. Layla was so mad about the bid that she pointed a butter knife right at Alice's throat. Alice stepped up and told Layla it was time to throw down. Layla snapped back that fighting her would be like a little kid trying to take on a grown-up. Alice teased Layla for giving up and gave her a sarcastic thanks. Then they started bickering about who was more mature while squishing poor Theo right in the middle. Totally losing it, the oaf screamed at them to knock it off. Back at the walls, Jack and Villager were keeping a sharp eye out for any sign of trouble. A few villagers were itching for more action from me, but Jack warned everyone to keep their eyes peeled for danger. Isha showed up knowing they were starving and thanked them for putting in the work. The whole village started worshipping her like she was their actual goddess. She asked Jack to join the squad, but he straight up said no. He started breaking out in a sweat the second he saw something totally weird. Jack is totally stunned and tells Aisha she's gotta warn them right this second. She headed straight for the massive banquet. That's the signal that another monster is heading straight for them. Theostund asked what they were dealing with, and Aisha told him it was just one single monster. He felt a huge wave of relief because taking on Theothought One was way easier than fighting off a whole army of dragons. Asha set the record straight and told them it was actually a giant turtle the size of a whole mountain. The old guy was sweating bullets, knowing he stood zero chance against a Calamity-class monster. He uses his autocrat skill to whip up a whiteboard out of iron and glass, then makes a marker using dye, water, cotton, and wood. Santa's mind was blown when he realized the pen actually wrote without him having to dip it in ink. Martina was stunned by how the writing just vanished like it was straight-up magic. She named it the Magic Pen. Santa was totally on board, and the OASD finally gave them the go-ahead to start the meeting. Santa said sorry and got right down to business talking about that stubborn turtle. A total disaster-class monster is charging straight for the village, and at this rate, it'll be here by noon. Santa explained that it totally lives up to its name. This massive turtle had a shell as hard as adamant, making swords and cannons totally useless, and since it healed super fast, it was basically like trying to fight a living mountain. Even though things were getting serious, Santa's drawings of the monster were actually super cute. But she warned that even Alice, Layla, Luna, and the magic cannon wouldn't be able to. She explained the turtle's massive mana blast, and her drawings were so adorable the group joked they wouldn't even mind getting hit by it. Santa quickly rubbed out the drawings, explaining that the turtle's attack was actually their big chance to strike back. But the others were gutted she erased them while Santa just stood there totally confused. Theo pushed her to keep moving forward. San told them the only way to hurt this thing is to strike right when it's attacking. She suggests blasting the magic cannon straight down its throat, and her drawing gets super gross, showing the turtle blowing up from the inside out. She insisted that the only way to take it down was to attack from the inside. Alice noticed that even though Sona loves cute stuff, her mercenary work has made her totally numb to all the blood and guts. Thea realized she had to bait the turtles into making the first move. Soun agreed, but she warned them the magic cannon might not actually work, so she told everyone to get the villagers out of there just to be safe. The turtles' massive attack was totally wrecking the entire village. Theo put the maids in charge of the evacuation and told the soldiers to get their defenses ready. Everyone jumps into the fight while Theo sets a trap to slow that monster down. He uses his autocrat skill to rip up the ground and stash it in his inventory, creating a perfect pitfall trap. He covered the floor with spikes to snag that turtle and then beefed up the village walls, turning them into a giant massive wall. He used his magic one last time until he was totally drained and just collapsed on the spot. As the sun rose, Hanuking woke up and was totally shocked to find himself resting right on Alice's lap. She told him she let him crash there so he wouldn't wake up all sore from the hard floor. She snatched the prize for herself after totally crushing Layla in a game of rock, paper, scissors. Allison told him he seriously needed to chill since he'd been grinding so hard on that trap. Theocene was totally wiped out, so Alice told him he'd done enough and let him rest his head right on her lap. Theo tried to head back to work, but Alice gave him a soft tap and told him he needed to rest. She totally chewed him out for pushing himself way too hard. He was warned that this could totally kill him, just like it did in his past life. The O felt super guilty and apologized for always needing her to bail him out. Alice fired back that Theo was actually the one who helped her out the most. Everyone was totally lost when OASD somehow pulled off the win. Alice straight up called him out for being totally clueless. She's thinking back to the day she was only 8 and scored those epic hero powers. She explained how her entire life was never the same after that. This hero power was given to anyone who proved they were worthy, no matter if they were rich or poor. Alice was just a regular girl working at her dad's diner, so she was totally shocked when she suddenly became a hero. Everything changed for her the second she was taken to that castle as a little kid. She survived some seriously brutal training right alongside the adults. Her trainer kept hitting her and screaming that she had to work her butt off for the kingdom. Every single person who got hero powers was signed up for the castle's special program. Alice is grinding hard to master the sword, powerful magic, and genius battle tactics. This wasn't even training anymore. It was straight-up brainwashing to turn her into a human weapon they called a hero. So young Alice is just wandering through the massive castle halls. Everyone started whispering, telling each other they better stay on the hero's good side. She wondered if they even realized her super hearing was catching every single word they whispered. Chilling in the garden alone, she realized there wasn't a single nice person in the whole castle. Just people obsessed with the hero and giving fake compliments. It hit her that since the moment she showed up, not a single person had used her real name. To them, she wasn't even a real person. She was just a hero they used like a tool. She flashed back to the good old days, serving happy crowds at her family's busy diner. Thinking about her old home made her tear up, and she just wanted to go back so bad. She thought back to Theo, the guy who really had her back during those dark times. He was the first guy to actually call her by her real name and hand her a handkerchief while she was crying. Alice finally saw him as a real human being, not just some legendary hero. He was way too shy to even say a word back then. She seriously wanted to thank him because he was the only reason she could stay true to herself. Theodown played along, saying she was his only friend, so Alice teased him that while she mastered the sword, he definitely mastered being lonely. Theo shot back that his mom was still waiting for him in Galen. Suddenly, Alice got dead serious and told them they had to do one thing before taking on that turtle. She brings up that favor they talked about last night. Shyly asks Theo if he's down to share it with her. Stun and Theos are completely frozen, struggling to even make a move. He turned bright red and asked if she knew how to transfer favor, and Alice said she totally got it, but told him not to get the wrong idea. She said she only offered to help because she'd feel way too guilty if Theo died without her. She straight up asked him if he was really gonna say no. He finally admitted that he totally thought she turned him down. Alice sliced a path straight into space and told him to keep it down. He didn't even stop for a single second. She leaned in and absolutely wrecked him. Their teeth slammed together and it looked super painful. Alice wasn't about to quit, so she sat him down and explained everything again, way more carefully this time. She waited a beat and then went right back in for another kiss. So now Theo's officially got 3 of the quiche girls on his side. He totally caught Alice turning bright red. She teased Theo for blushing and called him a total creep, but he fired back by saying she looked just like a boiled octopus. Alice made it super clear she was just passing on a favor and that was it. And that's when we meet Theo Shaley thanked her. Alice hesitated for a second, but then she finally came clean and said sorry for lying. She leaned in close and her touch totally made him lose his cool. Alice finally confessed that she's been dreaming about this exact moment with him forever. Theo's face turned bright red as Alice stood up and told him they were finished for now. She told him they'd pick things right back up once the battle was over. Theo was like, wait, what do you even mean by continue? Alice warned him he better stay alive or she'd be super pissed, and that totally fired him up to keep fighting. Theo promised they'd win it all together, and Alice couldn't help but beam with a huge smile. Before long, the village gates looked like massive walls that were totally Titan-proof. Layla hyped Theo up and said they were totally safe, but Alice started complaining about him overworking until he reminded her they were literally fighting a Calamity-class beast. Recalling Heat told Martina to give that magic cannon a massive upgrade. Martina was super hyped about the magic cannon, and Theo was totally geeking out over all the magic gadgets. He shouted for her to focus, catching the mage totally by surprise. He asked how those upgrades were coming along. Martina told Theo that the range, blast power, and reload speed were all buffed exactly how he wanted. She admitted she might have gone a bit overboard, but she actually upgraded the cans to hold more magic shards for a massive power boost, and Theo made sure to thank her for the hard work. Martina warned that the massive power boost might make it blow sky high, and Thea admitted she'd basically built a ticking time bomb. He thanked her anyway, telling her that cannon was their secret weapon for the big fight, which made Martina blush and act like it was nothing before she hurried away. Theo could totally tell she was dodging him. Luna pops in and starts teasing Theo for being such a total ladies' man. Theo kept saying everyone was just being nice, but Luna told him he was totally clueless. She asked if he was doing all right, or if he needed her to jump in and handle the fight. Theo brought up Layla's comment about how Luna was actually pretty weak. Luna agreed, knowing that if she let her god powers loose, it would just attract an even bigger nightmare. He told Luna she was the only one who could protect the village, but she was totally confused about what he meant. She went totally pale the second she saw that massive house on wheels. Theo knew the underground bunker wouldn't stand a chance against that turtle, so he built a base that can actually move. He told Luna to get it to safety, and as the turtles started their attack, she stepped up, saying she was the only one who could handle it. She swore she'd keep the villagers safe, just like they asked her to. And that right there is the Othanktor. You finally made it, and now you're already diving into the adamant turtle. Theo admitted he was shaking, and San totally got it because they were staring down a monster that was basically a walking disaster. Theo couldn't figure out why a monster that's usually so chill would suddenly go totally aggro. These stubborn turtles won't even attack unless you're the one who starts the fight. Sana let everyone in on the massive discovery Martina's just made. Martina starts checking out those wyverns to see what she's dealing with. They spotted leftovers of a total mind control spell. Theo was totally stunned when Santa realized the earth dragons and the adamant turtle were probably under the same spell too. Theo finally realized that someone was straight up targeting his village on purpose. Sana realized that mind control spells are insanely expensive, needing massive mana and rare items that cost a literal fortune. Controlling that massive turtle took a ton of energy, and Senna was sure the person behind this wasn't stopping at just one monster. It looks like this is going to be their very last showdown against the monsters. Sana listens in as that legendary video game boss gets brought back for one more epic showdown. He realized his heart wasn't racing because he was scared, but because he was actually super hyped. He didn't want to admit it, but he was low-key hyped for the fight. This super tough turtle started stomping its way right toward the village. He got absolutely blasted by that magic cannon. He's stepping up to hold back that massive monster first. The ground literally shattered under the turtle's massive weight as they let out a deafening roar. He goes tumbling down right into a pit full of sharp spikes. The Ocheard's trap worked perfectly. He gives the signal and every single cannon blasts away. The cannonballs slammed into the trap turtle and exploded. Theo kept hammering away with non-stop attacks, hoping to force its mouth open for a massive long-range blast. Then he blasts that magic cannon straight into its mouth, totally wrecking it from the inside out. Suddenly the turtle starts lifting its massive legs. Sen shouted a frantic warning that Theo was already climbing his way out. Theo was totally stunned because he really thought that pit would have held out way longer. But they weren't finished yet and had way more plans ready to go. Alice and Layla was locked in and ready to jump into the action. Layla told Alice straight up that she wasn't going to be dead weight. Alice snapped back, asking Layla who she thought she was talking to. They take their stances and let loose their ultimate moves. They team up to unleash a massive X-shaped sword strike. The attack slammed into the monster, slicing deep into its front left leg and drawing blood. The girls yelled at the turtle to stay down. It dragged its busted leg along, basically deciding that this pit was going to be its grave. The turtle crashes right back down into the trap. Theo was so hyped by the win that he told his soldiers to keep blasting away the second they finished reloading. Those cannons start blasting away at that super tough turtle all over again. Finally, it just couldn't take it anymore. It let out a massive roar that sounded like straight-up thunder. Sound signaled that he was finally getting ready to strike. Theo knew right then that this was finally their big chance. The turtle opens its mouth wide and starts charging up a massive long-range blast. But then he suddenly aimed right down at Alice and Layla. Nobody saw this coming. The oak couldn't aim for the mouth, and now the girls are right in the line of fire. The girls could totally feel the turtle's massive rage locking right onto them. Alice whipped up a plan in a split second. He jumps way up and starts talking trash to the beast. She slams her blade right into its chin. She screamed out to get its attention. That left its mouth wide open, giving Theo the perfect opening to fire. But Alice was standing right in the line of fire for that magic cannon. Just like that, Alice vanished into thin air. Theo gasped as Layla suddenly yanked her back to safety. Alice was shocked Layla saw right through her, and Layla finally admitted she was terrified Alice was planning a total suicide move. Theo didn't waste a second and fired the magic cannon, and man, the blast was way more powerful than before. He fired off the same shot he used on those earth dragons, and it landed a perfect direct hit. Then that super tough turtle just blew up from the inside with a massive echoing boom. That massive beast slammed into the ground with a huge thud. Santa let out a massive victory shout the second that turtle finally went down. Theo and the villagers went totally wild and started celebrating. Allison and Layla tapped their sword hilts to show some serious respect for each other. Santa was totally blown away that they actually took down a Calamity-class monster. The O gives Sona a huge shout-out for her genius plans. She gave all the props to her team for putting in the work. Theo asks where Allison and Layla are, so Santa points toward a rock where the girls are just standing there, watching him. Thea couldn't believe they'd already moved, and Santa was totally blown away by their insane speed. Suddenly, the turtle's eyes started glowing like it was actually still alive. It literally started rising right out of the dirt. Theo was totally shook when he saw that thing actually survive the magic cannon. Lala and Alice were both totally blown away by how this thing just wouldn't stay down. That turtle let out a massive roar, fighting like crazy to get out of the pit. Thea realized the monster was playing it safe now and definitely wasn't going to open its mouth again. All it could do was use its massive mountain-sized body to charge straight at the village. Theo's reinforced wall was keeping the village safe, but he had a bad feeling it wouldn't hold for long. If that wall breaks, those soldiers are as good as dead, and the whole village was going to be totally wiped out. While the O's were scrambling to find a plan, he noticed the rubble shifting right under the monster. Out of nowhere, he calls out the Fenrir pups by name and they appear. They showed up out of nowhere in a total flash. Wait, they actually asked for a favor? He handed off the notes to be delivered straight to Luna and Aisha. Right then, he told Silk to carry him straight under the turtle. Sana's totally freaking out and asking what his plan is, but Theo just tells her she's the boss while he's gone. He didn't even say a word, he just took off with Silk. He just ditched Sana and walked away without the puzzle. He knew deep down that he was totally going to win this. She finally got why her captain had so much faith in this guy. Alice goes all out on one of the giant turtle's legs, hitting it hard with her insane hero skills. Layla lashes out, taking another shot at its leg. They went all out with everything they had, but their attacks didn't even leave a scratch. They weren't fast enough to stop it, and the turtle managed to scramble right out of the pit. Alice was getting super frustrated that the giant beast was just brushing off their hits, so Layla told her their attacks were basically like mosquito bites, and said they should try another combo move. Before they could even react, that stubborn turtle spotted them, and moved like it was ready to snap them up or swallow them whole. But that wasn't what it was actually trying to do. Instead, it just ripped its mouth open, charging up for another huge explosion. The girls realized right away that the turtle was going to blow itself up and take them all down with it. Layla realized the turtle was actually being super smart, using its tanky body and healing powers to keep its mouth safe from any more magic blasts. Alice realized that taking down this super sneaky turtle was going to be a total nightmare. Layla grabbed Alice and yanked her back. They knew they had to get out of there fast, so she told Alice to watch her back. She picked her up and Alice went along with it, but she was seriously doubting they'd get away fast enough. Suddenly, Theo cuts them off and screams for everyone to hit the deck. He used his crafting powers to blast a massive spear out of the ground, stabbing the turtle right under its chin. All that energy the turtles were holding back just totally exploded. Its mouth literally blew up and it ended up wrecking itself. Theo shouted over to the girls with a big smile, asking if they were all okay. The girls were totally fed up and demanded to know why Theo was out there risking his life on the front lines. He said the adamant turtle is playing it way more safe now, making their magic cannon totally useless. But then he drops a bombshell. He actually found a whole new way to take that thing down. Once he got a really good look at the beast, he told the girls they had to check out the turtle's belly. The girls finally saw cracks starting to break through its shell. Theo realized the magic cannon left those cracks behind, so they just had to blast that weak spot with one massive hit to take the turtle down. Alice finally realized exactly what she had to do. Theo told her to hold up, because even though Alice was their strongest, he didn't think she could smash that spot all by herself. Othan finally dropped the master plan he'd been cooking up, once he finished mapping the whole thing out. The girls realized this plan is putting Theo in some serious danger. Alice also pointed out they were way too short-handed to actually pull it off. Theoria told them not to freak out because backup was already on the way. Right then, Luna finally shows up and starts apologizing for being so late. Luna told everyone that the villagers were totally safe now that Gorm was protecting them. She told him she read his letter and was totally blown away by his genius ideas, and Theo was just super hyped that she actually showed up. Layla called Luna out for being a weak fighter and asked what she was even doing to help. Luna finally came clean about the limits holding her back. She said she brought Sana along for backup, and Theo was totally hyped to see her. Santa kept complaining about how they were being way too rough with her. Santa finally shows up, and even though the squad is looking big, Alice realizes there's still one person short. The O promised her that he already had the final piece all set to go. He looked right at the giant turtle and shouted that it was finally time to start their master plan.